So I get this message from Judy. She is my office manager, about a patient who received their first adjustment the day before, Chantel. And Chantel called the office back to say that after her first adjustment, she had been experiencing extreme pain. And I'm always a little disappointed to hear that kind of a dramatic response. But in a case like hers, here's the thing, I really wasn't surprised. And maybe you've heard a story like this, right? A friend of yours has gone to see a chiropractor, and after their first visit, they say something like, yeah, I went to see a chiropractor once, and I was way worse afterwards, and I've never, ever been back. Does that sound familiar? It's one of the common stories about chiropractic that you hear out that, and I'm the first one to admit that chiropractic's had a really bad rap, and for many years, and sometimes it's well deserved, and most of the time it isn't, but sometimes it is. And one of the consequences is that people are nervous to come and see us. And when they're nervous to come and see us, there's a consequence to that too, and that is that it always leads to more pain and suffering for you. Because here's how things go usually. People are going to have some kind of pain. Let's say you've got headaches, you've got neck pain, you've got sciatica, and what are your options? Who is it are you going to go and see? I know personally, 20 odd years ago, when I was a paramedic, I got injured on the job, and I knew about chiropractors, but they were not my first choice. Chiropractic was my last choice. I went and I tried everything else. I did physio, I did pills, anti-inflammatories, painkillers, and it was only when nothing was working that I finally went to see the chiropractor. And a lot of those things, acupuncture, massage, and chiropractic, and physio, they're awesome. I co-manage patients with these other professionals often, many times. The problem occurs when we use it in the wrong order, as I did. In fact, some of my patients, at some point during their care, I said, you know what, John, right now what you need is some physiotherapy. And they'll say something like, Paul, you forget, I've already done physiotherapy, and I'll say, you know what, you've never done physiotherapy after already having started chiropractic. Now things are set. I'm almost certain that when you go and try physio now, it's going to be a lot more effective. And 9 times out of 10, that's exactly what happens. They've done some correction from a structural point of view, seeing me, and then when they do go see the physiotherapist, they start to get even more results, and it works when it didn't in the past. So back to the story of Chantel. She had tried about 1 million other things before coming to see me, including injections into her joints. And when she finally came in to see me, it was because her whole life really had fallen apart. She could barely function at work. She couldn't function at home. She was exhausted all the time. She was on all these pills and medication. Things were looking really bleak. And so there are parts of her spine that have not seen movement, that have not been able to be unlocked for a decade. And so enter the chiropractor, right? Her first chiropractic adjustment, we start to put some movement into some joints for the first time. And in many times, it's decades, just like Chantel was earlier this week. And so it's absolutely normal and expected for somebody like that for their body to resist the changes that I'm going to bring about. And the resistance, what that feels like, is some increase, a temporary increase in your symptoms. So where this becomes a story that you hear about from friends or colleagues saying, trying to convey their disdain for chiropractic, is that person was never warned in advance. So in Chantel's case, she came back to the office today. She's not going to be part of the story that gets perpetuated. So she came back in because I told her on her first visit, I said, Chantel, this has been inside of you for at least 15 years from what she told me on her new patient exam. I said, you can expect that as I start to perform these adjustments, that some of your symptoms are absolutely likely to get worse before they get better. And she looked at me and she answered, she goes, that makes sense. So what happened when she did in fact experience those symptoms is that she called my office. And she didn't call to cancel her appointments. She called to, what she was really doing was seeking some reassurance and to let me know in advance that she was in a lot of pain. So here's how we handled something, how we handled her case. She came in, and what we had to do was change the approach. Now, I remember 20 odd years ago when I first went to see a chiropractor, I had some decent results. And then very soon after starting care, I actually moved here to Ottawa to start university. I did my nursing degree at Ottawa U, and I was still in a lot of pain. And so I went to see this new chiropractor that my first guy had referred me to. And I was shocked that his whole office, his tables, his approach, everything he did was radically different than the first guy that I saw in Mississauga. And I thought, you know what, in my head I thought all chiropractors did the same thing. I was expecting, the twisting and crunching and cracking that I experienced with the first guy. And what I learned from this new chiropractor here in Ottawa is that not all chiropractors use the same technique. There's many different approaches. So his method was very, very subtle. It wasn't so obvious. It was very light, very gentle. In fact, to the point where I thought nothing really happened. Until, of course, very quickly my symptoms got better and I started to improve. And so I was very lucky. I went to a school that in the United States. That's where I went to chiropractic school. And I was very lucky to go to a school that emphasized a lot of different approaches. And so what we did with Chantel when she came in is we changed the technique to a very, very subtle, gentle technique that doesn't involve any of what you've seen on TV, the crunching and cracking and the U.S. Army Ranger, quick movement of the head. There was none of that. And she got up from the table, she smiled at me, and I could see her shoulders drop. She felt better almost instantly. So the takeaway from this is if you're watching this and you're struggling with your health and you're really not sure what to do next, what I'd ask you to do is not to wait another minute. The longer you wait, the more scar tissue, the more chronic inflammation seeps into all of those joints. And the harder it is for this to ever really get corrected. I know that the people that walk into my office, because it's last chance chiropractic in many cases, their lives are maybe not in a shambles. In some cases, they're in a shambles. They're considering having to sell their business. They're considering having to completely change their careers. Their relationships are broken because they're just not themselves. They can't function. They're exhausted all the time. So if that's you, this is what I'd like you to do next. I'm going to this is a live video, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of links in the comments section when this is done. And what that will lead to is an opportunity for a consultation, not an appointment. Not an appointment to come in and be a new patient, but it's an appointment to ask some questions and get perhaps some of the things that you're nervous about, that you want to ask about but you don't dare ask, right? I'd like to give you the opportunity to do just that and ask the questions that you might find awkward. And you can do that one of two ways. I'm going to put two links, and one link is going to be for an in-person consultation. Those are always better. And what you do at an in-person consultation, you book the appointment online, and it's 15, 20 minutes. You come in, you ask your questions, you keep your money in your pocket. There's no charge for that. And you just get a feel for me, for how I answer your questions. I'm going to have some questions for you too. And then, if you feel comfortable, then we can always do an exam. The other way, it's even safer for you, right? It's even less of a commitment. The other appointment you can book is for an over-the-phone consultation. And you can call and you can leave your information. I'll call you back, and you can ask any questions you have from the comfort of your own home. And there's no charge for that. So give our office a call. Our phone number is, I'm going to put that and you can click through on Facebook. You know how to do that. Find our office information. I'll put that in the link as well. And you can go and alternatively you can go and book that online. So hopefully this was of value to you. And if you're already seeing a chiropractor, awesome. And you know what you should do is just share this with some of your friends and family who you feel might benefit from the information. If you're not seeing a chiropractor, let's say you're in Nepean, and that's where I'm streaming this from. I'm on Merivale Road in Nepean. If you're close by, connect with me. If you're at New Orleans, you can connect with me also. And what I can do in that case is get you hooked up with somebody that I would trust, that I would go and see. All right, so thanks for watching, and look in the comments section in a couple minutes. You'll see the links there. Bye now.